not to let comic companies off the hook, but we've heard basically similar stories from people who exist in the larger book trade. If you have a book that you need to promote, and if you're an author that wants a good deal, the thing that you're more or less asked is, how can you promote this on social media? How are you going to drive people to stores?
Come on and visit for any occasion. Don't keep patting down waiting. Comics and conversation. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers. And now, here are Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
On my walk to the studio tonight to record this very episode of this very podcast, I played a little game.
Okay.
A game called Who Still Has Christmas Lights Up and Lit?
It's a real pet peeve of yours.
Well, I mean, it is later January.
Yep.
I don't care if you still have them up. I mean, I've been known to leave lights up all year round. I just don't turn them on until next Christmas.
Okay.
It saves time. 2, by the way. The answer was 2. One business had a big lit wreath in their window, and a residential apartment or condo had lights on their deck and big colored light bulbs, which I like.
Sure. What's not to like?
Now, if they changed all those bulbs to red, I'd say, okay, Valentine's lights. And it's always possible that these lights are what, Dal?
Non-holiday decorative lights.
Which is a thing.
It is.
So, who can say for sure, but they definitely had them up and lit during the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're multi-purpose. I don't know. I'm just saying, you go into Walgreens or Target, they all have Valentine's Day stuff up. And a lot of Valentine's candy.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of Valentine's candy I've already eaten.
Sure. It's delicious.
And it's like a month away. But last I checked, which was never, this is not a Valentine's Day podcast.
Nope.
Do you want it to be?
I don't. I don't really have anything specific to say about Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I don't have an angle on it.
Nope.
I mean, whatever. If people like it, great. If they don't like it, okay.
No judgment.
I seem to only ever have dated people who never liked Valentine's Day,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't have a good track record with it.
Curmudgeons. You dated curmudgeons.
Maybe.
Exclusively curmudgeons. It's okay to have a type.
Isn't everybody a curmudgeon in some way?
No.
Why I feel
No,
I'm
they're not.
very curmudgeonly.
I guarantee you there's a lot of people who unironically appreciate and involve themselves in Valentine's Day celebrations.
No, I didn't specifically mean Valentine's curmudgeon. Aren't people curmudgeons about anything?
No, there's good people out there.
Can you name some?
No, I don't know any of them personally.
Okay. This wasn't a test.
I'm assured they exist.
I just wanted to
How else
be
would
able
you know damaged people if there weren't undamaged people out there
through you
to
that those people
strive
existed.
to meet, if not become?
I know damaged people. Dal, I work in the comics industry.
Yeah.
I wonder how many of the submissions for Cake this year are autobiographical comics.
I don't know that the majority of what I read in the submission packets were autobio, but there was certainly a bunch. That's usually a pretty...
well represented.
Yeah, I was going to say it's usually a pretty standard way into comics for people is, writing and drawing things about their lives. It's what they have the most knowledge of. What
did you say the 3 main categories were for the ones you read?
I don't remember.
Oh, it was real good. We talked about it yesterday. It was either... I'm putting words in your mouth. I'm not going to get them right. But fantasy, freeform, art... And I guess autobio.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't.
None of this isn't ringing a bell at all.
Not at all.
Oh man, it was a really well formed sentence.
I mean, the second one would probably be like non-narrative.
Okay.
Is usually like there's been I can't think of a specific artist, but there's been plenty of people that have been put out by like Picture Box when they existed, where it would just be stuff that was not narratively focused. Not necessarily featuring recognizable characters or dialogue or anything like that. More like mood pieces.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's definitely plenty of that. But yeah, mostly it was fantasy comics, and then it was autobio. Were most of what I saw in the submission packets were some combination of those.
I had sent Chris from Cake a list of observations from this year, and he responded point by point to what I said.
Where are all the Batman comics?
And not a single cape in my entire jury packet.
So weird. Why even call the Comics Arts Festival Entertainment Cape if you're not going to have a single cape in there? The P is for festival.
I understood. I got it. And like I said, he responded to every point, and he was so professional in the way he responded, and it almost made me feel bad. So I followed up just to say, like, hey, you're doing an amazing job. This is a thankless task. You have so much to do.
You were supposed to ignore my comments, not respond to them and take them on side. No.
I didn't want him to think that I in any way devalue what he does or think that it's easy, because I don't, and it isn't.
No.
And I don't think he got that feeling from it. But I wanted to reiterate that this was just because I mentioned that none of the Squarespace links worked,
Right.
and you found the same thing.
Yep.
But he had said that he tested every single link before he sent everything out.
I don't know Squarespace, and I don't know their service and their hosting platform, but my suspicion is that while they worked when he sent them, they were not long-time links that worked forever.
Okay.
They were links that were maybe good for a few days or a few weeks, and then by the time you and I did our judging PDFs, they were not good. But I don't know how true that is, but the fact that neither you nor I could get Squarespace stuff to work, and our judging packets were not identical.
No.
Which means that it's not just like one or two people whose links didn't work. It's across the board.
And we were most likely on different networks at the time. I would say yes, since
Maybe.
I use a VPN.
Oh, okay. Why did you use a VPN?
For reasons.
Okay.
Although I have found that when I'm running it,
Uh-huh.
I cannot click any link from an email, from a newsletter,
Okay.
to get to, like, for example, our newsletter. If I were to click on a link in that, it just times out.
Weird.
Or Patreon one, so I'd have to go to Patreon directly and find it.
Okay.
But I did, because, you know what, I was not, for the back half of the Cake judging, I was not using the VPN because I turned it off because it was too annoying to do all that stuff.
Okay.
And it also messes with the cookies
Okay.
because it thinks you're at a different place.
Sure. Technically you are.
Yeah. Using a VPN, I can watch British programming.
Yeah, that's sort of what I figured out in my head after you mentioned VPNs, and I thought
Yeah.
about it for a minute.
Although sometimes they ask for real specifics, like, what's your postal code? Like, oh, I don't know.
I assume you're learning them.
It's 7.
Okay. Postal code 7.
Postal code 7. Yeah, no, I don't understand how they do it. But that's neither here nor there. Although we did have a British gentleman in today looking for any Constantine merchandise.
Oh, okay. Time to come back on Free Comic Book Day? when the pop
I
comes
absolutely
out?
did. I absolutely
Good.
100% did. He got very excited for that.
Cool.
Seeing how that is the only thing we can get.
Pretty much.
And I felt extra bad because I have so much.
Yeah.
I have had, like I had...
You've been buying it for decades.
Well, sure. I have all the
That's
action...
different.
There's at least 4 action figures. I have a magnet, an enamel pin. I used to have a statue that I got rid of.
Mm-hmm. A hand-drawn tie.
A hand-drawn tie, which I think I still have. I'm not sure if I still have that.
A giant window decal of a Mike Norton drawing of Constantine, I think.
I'm sorry, of who?
Hellblazer? Did he not? Didn't somebody do a Constantine one?
No, that's my point to you is who did it?
I don't remember. Was it Seeley? Was it Norton? I don't know. That was 10 years
was
ago.
it just one person?
I'm asking.
It was Mike Norton.
Okay.
And?
Patrick Brower?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Hey, I inked and colored it.
Congratulations. It was very well done.
I was just looking at the original pencils and the inked art today. So it's not that big of a week in the world of comics retail.
No?
Not a lot happened, I don't think. There was a thing that was reported today, and it was David Harper mentioned that another retailer had told him about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when asked where that retailer saw it, they were told in today's Image email.
Okay.
So I double-checked and never saw it listed.
Okay.
But the thing, and I cannot say whether or not this is true because I've not seen it specifically stated, perhaps you did somewhere, that Image will be making the majority of their number ones fully returnable moving forward.
Yes, that is true, and I don't believe it was in...
It wasn't in the email.
No.
Like, for example, they talked about...
It was on Diamond's site. I gotta look it up.
Okay, they talked about Hit Girl Season 2, number 1, and in the description it said, hey, this is returnable.
Yeah.
But it's not, from the way it was phrased, it wasn't necessarily every Image number 1.
One of the things I hate about my phone is that for some reason, there's 3 things when you log into Diamond. The username, your account number, and password, and it always auto-completes my account number as my username. So I have to go in and change that every single time, which is like...
Well,
why auto-complete
the
them?
username and the account number are the exact same thing, except one of them has 3 extra letters. And I've never understood the need for that second field. Because your username is your account number.
Yeah,
but with just 3 letters in front of it.
So the press release... Do you want me to read it?
Sure.
Image Comics is pleased to announce 2 unprecedented programs to support direct market retailers and the successful launch and ongoing longevity of creator-owned comics called No Risk Number Ones and Double Down Discount. Both programs will be open to any retailer with Diamond account, and there will be no restrictions to participate. The 2 new programs originated out of feedback from ongoing conversations between key comic shop retailers and Eric Stevenson, publisher and chief creative officer of Image Comics, and are delighted are designed to eliminate the burden of risk on any comic shop looking to support with strong orders a selection of highly curated and exciting new series from Image. This is a quote now. We are constantly looking for new ways to support direct market retailers, and based on feedback we received from them over the last year, we believe the best way to do that is by reducing risk without adding conditions or catches to the ordering process, said Stevenson. The No Risk Number Ones program will allow comic shop retailers to order a selection of new number 1 issues at no risk with no hoops to jump through. The No Risk Number Ones will be fully returnable and will not require strip cover returns. The program will not require direct market retailers to enroll in any special program, and it will not require any additional jumping through hoops to participate other than a standard Diamond account. This is weird. And this is, again, an Image press release, so they came up with this. No other publisher offers as aggressive a program with direct market retailers in mind. So, we'll come back to that quote in a moment. Just to wrap it up real quick, Stevenson said, Image has thrived for 27 years thanks to the direct market. When we do something right, retailers support us. When we get things wrong, those same retailers don't hesitate to let us know. Good or bad, we always welcome feedback from our retail partners, and we've come to trust that even if we don't like what we're hearing, it always comes from a good place. There's no one more invested in the ongoing success and sustainability of the comics marketplace than the people working on the front lines in the stores, and finding new ways to support retailers is always a priority. So real quick, No Risk Number 1 terms, selected number 1 issues, so not everything. We'll have it noted. The first one they're doing is Little Bird number 1 that's in the current catalog, due out in March.
Okay.
And then, so basically an affidavit, you will, as a retailer, you will testify through the affidavit that you are destroying X amount of copies. You don't have to send strip covers back. You don't have to do anything besides destroy the comics. Submit the affidavit, and then you will receive credit from Image through Diamond for the return copies. The Double Down discount is specific Image issues, second issues, will feature a quantity that you'll have to meet or exceed. If you do that, they are...
Maximum discount of 60%?
Is what they're doing for the first one. It's criminal number 2, basically. If you order at or above 100% of your criminal number 1 orders, criminal number 2 is a full 60% discount.
Yeah, I don't know that we would do that.
No. For smaller series that we maybe did not bet as heavy on, we could maybe give that a shot. Things that we're ordering 8 or 10 copies of. We ordered way more than 8 or 10 copies of criminal number 1 and don't really feel like having that many copies of issue 2.
Do you think the Double Down discount will ever be tied to a returnable number 1?
I don't know.
Because that would be...
That's a fair question.
That would be a book that you ordered heavier on because it was returnable.
Yeah.
And then you have to meet that. But obviously the threshold is
if it's
a little bit different.
But if Image is smart, they would not do that. In the same way that we were frustrated where at a certain point... books that we were looking to get returnability on or a deeper discount on, the match 2 number was for a series that also had that offer.
Which was previously matched to a different
So it kept
book.
escalating and escalating.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, to reach a level, you're having to go above and beyond a thing you already went above and beyond on. So if they can maybe keep it to number ones that don't have the no risk number 1 offer, then do the double down discount. You can do one or the other. You can't do both.
I find it interesting that they say that they're not adding conditions. I'm assuming that is just to the
That's for the no risk number ones.
Number ones?
Yeah, the double downs, it absolutely is a condition. A condition of the discount is you have to hit this level.
Now, I thought the double down was, instead of bread, it
Right.
was 2 pieces of chicken.
Well, 2 fried pieces of chicken.
Okay.
Yeah. And then between that, toppings. So the chicken is the bread.
Got it.
And there's no bread in between the chicken. So obviously the thing that we're going to want to touch on real quick is the Image press release quote. Let me find it again. No other publisher offers as aggressive a program with direct market retailer needs in mind. One immediately comes to mind,
The Boom Guarantee Return Program,
which this is a carbon copy of.
especially the affidavit part.
Yeah, this is 100% what Boom did a few years ago.
Except,
Not recently.
except they're not adding conditions, and the condition for Boom was you had to say, "I'd like to join that program, please."
Yeah. So
And that is the entirety of what you had to do to join that.
yeah. So I guess by that thing, maybe technically, Image is right in that you are automatically enrolled by having a diamond account number, but it's kind of BS
Yeah.
to act like, you know what, we had this great idea. Affidavit only returns. Stay with me here. We think this could work.
I know this is something you've never heard of.
There's clearly no evidence to show that this could work, either from a publisher level or from a retailer anecdotal level. But stay with us. We think this is just crazy enough to work.
I will say I'm very surprised at the number of retailers not involved in the Boom program.
Sure.
And I know Boom
I'm not
was-
surprised.
yeah, I mean, I guess not.
A
but-
program that if you pay attention to could help your business, I'm never surprised that comics retailers are not involved in those. How many retailers have we heard over the years that get angry about the idea of returnability because previous to the affidavit portion, they have to actually tear the covers off and send them back? Like, this is so much extra work to do in a 7-day work week.
Well, Dal, I mean, you see me do it on Tuesdays. It does take, like, a solid 5 minutes out of my week.
Yeah, and that's going over the racks, finding copies, checking the restock boxes in the back to see if there's any there, stacking them all up, tearing the covers off, and then writing numbers down on a sheet of paper to remind you the next Tuesday that you need to report these as returnable.
Well, you didn't add in the reporting process. That's,
Yes.
you know, a full third of the process.
Yep, 5 whole minutes across 2 different days.
I don't know how I
Hard-
missed those
hard
image
to find the
announcements
time.
because I do read the Diamond Daily every day, but clearly I missed that today. Was that today, you said?
It was, yeah, it was in the Diamond
Okay.
Daily. It was one of the
Okay.
news items.
Huh. Well,
Now you don't have to because I read it all out loud to you.
Here are my takeaways.
Uh-huh.
Number one, apparently we're not a key retailer.
Yeah, okay, sure. I'll allow that. I would agree with that statement.
They're not adding conditions, which means there will be no match twos or...
They're just saying this book is returnable. And not even returnable. You just have to say you're destroying the unsold copies, and we will give you credit for them.
And it's a selection, not the full line.
Yeah, I gotta assume there's certain books that they don't feel like they maybe need to do it. Little Bird absolutely should do it, because Ian Bertram is a cool artist, and I liked his stuff on House of Penance, and some other things. The guy who's writing it is nobody. He's a guy who's done a few, like, short films that have seen some play on short film festivals. And I'm going to bring this up because I thought the description that they have for Little Bird #1 is one of the most pretentious solicits I think I've ever read. Director-screenwriter Darcy Van Polgeest boasts a long list of awards and accolades, which is why you know exactly who Darcy Van Polgeest is, for his storytelling prowess, and brings the same writing finesse to Ian Bertram's breathtakingly detailed artwork in the gorgeous, hyper-detailed miniseries Little Bird. Here it is. Please, if you're wearing a monocle, remove it now so it doesn't pop immediately off your face. With the same limitless scope as a new East of West or Saga, and the drama and surrealism of Akira, Little Bird follows blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
You're name-checking in your second paragraph, East of West, Saga, and Akira.
I assume later on is Watchmen and Mouse.
If there was a third paragraph to this solicit, I assume it would also cure cancer. But they had to cut some stuff for space. Keep it punchy, keep it memorable. Definitely don't overpromise with comparing your 5-issue Image miniseries by someone whose comics I don't think have ever existed before, writing-wise, to East of West, Saga, and Akira. Just maybe aim a little lower with your expectations. I thought that was bonkers. And, the idea of it being returnable certainly makes me more inclined to get behind it in a way that I would not have off of that solicitation. Which, I don't know who at Image is responsible for these things. I always assume it's the creators who are doing the launch solicits, you know?
Yeah.
But I really
I
wish...
assume the same.
I wish someone on the publishing side would have kind of stepped in and went, hey guys, going to make a T-motion with my hands here to say, let's pause this real quick. Like what you've written, let's change a couple things, specifically where you compare yourself to 2 of Image's biggest hits of the last 10 years, and a towering achievement in comics over the last 100 years. Maybe let's come up with some other words that we can use other than those things.
Let's change East to West to Invisible Republic.
Uh-huh.
And let's change Saga to...
How about just sci-fi? Or fantasy?
This is weird because I have a great segue, but I'm not finished with this topic.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So no. You gave me I could jump to this thing, but I won't.
Well, write down what that is so we can get to it later.
One of the things that was pointed out was that, the press release mentioned 27 years.
Of Image Comics?
Yeah.
Okay.
And 27 years ago, these creators left Marvel because they didn't like the conditions on both the publishing and the retail side.
Sure. Eric Larson talked heavily about respect and how people didn't respect Shrapnel? What was the character's name? His Doom Patrol villain?
Yeah, whatever. But now it's pointed out that at a point where Image is trying something to help the market, Rob Liefeld announced his next Marvel project today.
Major X.
Major X, which, I mean, let's face it looks bad.
Sure.
But that's a nice little...
I mean, it also looked bad...
...flip of timing, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it looked bad 20... How many years ago was that? 96? 22 years ago?
Yeah.
23 years ago? When 2 of the Image founders decided that they would absolutely do a bunch of work-for-hire work at Marvel? Yeah, so in the early days of Image, they were still not 100% away from the idea of, well, if the money's good, I would definitely do work-for-hire stuff.
Yeah, interesting. And as far as the double down sandwiches go for volume for issue 2s, that extra discount is not that great of an incentive to go crazy with orders.
Yeah, again,
it's nice. I'm not going to turn it down if we qualify, but...
Well, again, I think more than anything, it depends on what the starting level is. Like, if you're ordering 50 copies of issue 1, you're probably going to sell, like, at most, 40 copies of issue 2. So if I got to order 10 extra copies to get a 5% discount, that's not necessarily a huge savings for me. But if I ordered 10 copies of the first issue, and I would order 8 copies of issue 2, 2 more copies isn't necessarily killing me, you know?
Right. That depends on... Yeah, it's all a matter of...
I mean, I haven't... This
reach.
is talking out loud math, so I'm sure someone could actually do the math on this and go, no, here's why the opposite would be true. But just for my own confidence in ordering, 10 extra copies of something is maybe more than I would want to do to get a discount on something. I've done stuff before on Marvel final order cutoffs where we ordered a decent number of issue 1, but then the issue 2 thing was like, if you can maintain this level, you'll get this great discount. And I'm like, wow, that's a great savings. And then the numbers drop way lower than I expected. And then we just get stuck with Thor number 2s forever. Not to name names. Cast dispersions. Coded language, you don't even know what title I'm talking about.
Right. It could be anything. It's probably a DC book.
So I had slightly something I wanted to talk to off of this, since we're sort of in the Image realm, but if you wanted to do something else,
No, go ahead. I just realized there were 2 questions we had from patrons that I forgot to print out.
Next time. So I hadn't caught the beginning part of this, but Diamond had released their numbers for 2018, and I guess they had done some math errors that resulted in an up year.
I did see a corrected article, but I didn't read it.
Yeah, they corrected down to a drop of 1%. Specifically, though, the December drop had this really sizable, it was down December 2018 graphic novels versus December 2017 graphic novels. The drop was like 8%.
Okay.
And one of the things they talked about was the top 10 graphic novels. Number one was Paper Girls, the new volume of that. But then nothing else from Image charted in the top 10. And it reminded me of something that I want to say we talked about a year ago as a potential upcoming problem for Image, which is that none of their new series seem to be hitting.
Yeah.
And if they're not hitting in single issues, they're really not going to hit when they hit graphic novels. Like, I know, I'm sure we talked about this on when Brian Hibbs was a guest. And I want to say we talked about it before then. So if people want to go back and dig around, they can probably find us talking about this.
That was really early in the year, right? When Brian was on? I want to say winter of 2018.
Yeah, but this is something that was becoming clear in 2017, where a lot of Image launches were coming out that were just kind of dying on the vine. A lot of stuff that was coming out that was, I mean, not to be unfair, but like Little Bird, where it's like, okay, this is a creative team that doesn't have a lot of heat behind them, and they're doing a story that just kind of blends in with a lot of things Image is doing. The concept isn't huge, and the creative team isn't huge. And if they're not going to hit in single issue form, they're usually not going to hit in graphic novel form. The one exception that I can point to is Monstrous, which, as I think we talked about on our year-end wrap-up,
last week.
Single issues don't do great for us with Monstrous. Graphic novels do awesome. That thing's got a huge fan base that's just reading the graphic novels.
Is it worth carrying the Conan poster that is just the Belit cover from Age of Conan #1?
The Sana Takeda one?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Well, I mean, just because it's such a good piece.
Yeah, it's a solid design. Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to, yeah, sure.
Okay, it's in the new previews.
But yeah, it's a weird situation where Image is at, where this, like, it's a real dangerous point for them for the next few years, where it's hard to look at things that are being published right now and say, okay, well, that's going to be huge in graphic novels. Even things that we thought would have a really big audience graphic novel-wise, like for me, Redlands and Sleepless were two that I'm like, oh man, when these hit trades, they're going to do great. Redlands does pretty well. Not like all-star level. And Sleepless, no one really cared about. We pushed it. But, I mean, that thing's canceled with issue 11, so that's just two trades. That's done.
It's done.
And, I mean, we love Daniel Warren Johnson stuff, but those are also short series, which usually don't have the ability to kind of grow its audience. It's 2 volumes and you're out. So, I'm basically, now that Murder Falcon's out, we're not seeing a lot of people going back to, like, Extremity.
Yeah.
You know, because it's not fresh. It's not on the stands right now. There's not current promotion for it. There's no new eyeballs on it. The hope is that, you know, they'll go back, if they like Murder Falcon, to go find Extremity. But that's not as reliable as this is a hit comic that's on the stands right now and people are buzzing about it, and that's leading other people to pick up the collections. It's a real dangerous thing for them. It's, I mean, between, you know, competition like Aftershock and IDW and Oni and Dark Horse, where creators can land there, and a lot of new startups that are also kind of occupying some folks that would do Image books with other projects. Like, companies like Marvel and DC, when they lose creators, that's okay because they still have Batman and Superman and Spider-Man and X-Men. And there's always going to be people that want to write those books, which means there's always going to be people who are going to want to read those books. Like, there's always going to be a certain base level for these corporately owned characters. Image doesn't have anything internally that they own. So you're dependent on, God, I hope, you know, Matt Fraction can come up with another idea that's going to be good. But when you have your current creators doing as much work as they can, Brian K. Vaughan, or not really being around to do new stuff, Matt Fraction, Kelly Sue DeConnick, Jonathan Hickman, also Brian K. Vaughan, weirdly, the new creators that are coming up don't have the sales to bring with them, which means that the stuff is kind of, again, dying on the vine. You're seeing these books come out with no heat and no real buzz, and they can't last long enough to build that buzz. So they just kind of evaporate, and you get this Image publishing plan that's just, I don't know, hopefully you'll like some of these. Which is why I'm glad they're doing some of this stuff to get buy-in for stores, because it's harder and harder to take a chance on some of these Image books. But I don't know if that's going to change people picking them up and reading them, because we've stocked plenty of Image #1s that nobody bought.
Oh, yeah. And I wanted to make a comment about the way we order Image graphic novels for a second. You had said that you'd based sometimes a series hits, sometimes it doesn't, but we will order a trade higher if we sell a lot of the series.
Sure.
We will order a trade lower or not at all if we don't sell well of the singles. And we do not subscribe to the, people are waiting for trade. Like, we always count the single sales as a reflection of interest from people, regardless of graphic novel attempts to buy. I lost that sentence as I was saying it. If it sells good in singles, we'll order more of the graphic novel. If it doesn't, we won't.
Yeah, like if we can't sell an issue 1 of a comic series, the assumption is not, well, people are just waiting for the trade. No, it's just they're not interested in the idea.
They don't care.
So why would we order a bunch more of the higher priced version of that story?
And there's a lot more than before of Image graphic novels we're just not ordering. I mean, we barely order Marvel trades.
Yeah.
For whatever Marvel trades you see on the New This Week shelves from us, you have to assume there are 8 we didn't order. I mean, it's really low.
I know we've talked about this in the store, and we've probably talked about it on the podcast more than once. I don't, and I know you don't either, don't like the way Marvel does their regular graphic novels.
No.
They're so thin, they're so expensive. Issue by issue, they're not a terrible value. They're not a very good value, but they're not a terrible value. But they just look so cheap and overpriced because the paper is so thin. And the volume is so slight.
And the covers curl quicker.
Yeah, it's such a, like, their Ultimate Collections I love. That's, like, one of my favorite things in comics. Is the, I got the She-Hulk one right here. This is all the Charles Soule, Javier Pulido She-Hulk stuff. It's 12 issues plus Wolverine's number 13 and material from Gwenpool Special number 1. So it's 14 comics for $35. Like, that's to me, that's a great value.
Sure.
That's awesome. I'll go in for that. There's a lot of older stuff where I'll say, you know what, I don't know if I'm going to reread that right now, but I want to have that in my library. And the cost per issue, basically, is cheap enough where I feel like I can do that. I don't really do that for their ongoing, contemporary comics. Because they're just, even for me, who owns a comic shop, they just feel like a really bad deal.
And they too often add in extraneous material that has nothing to do with what you're getting.
Yeah, that second Mockingbird volume that was like 3 issues of the comic, 2 or 3 issues of the comic, and then, well, we can't release a 2 or 3 issue graphic novel, so here's like her first appearance and this West Coast Avengers story or whatever.
Yep.
Thanks for that. Didn't ask for that.
The way
not buying it for that.
The first Kate Bishop Hawkeye, not even that, just the first Hawkeye book had the first appearance of Kate Bishop in the back with the Alan Davis drawn.
Yeah, well, Matt
Young
Fraction wrote
Avengers.
that issue, so I guess that's where they're coming from.
Yeah.
I guess.
But it just had nothing to do with the story that was being told.
No, for sure. It was completely padding it out.
Yeah, not a fan.
So yeah, graphic novels for December down 8%. Wonder why.
Wonder why.
Weirdly, I don't think that was the case for us. I mean, I don't know the year to year, but our 2018 graphic novels were up over 2017, I think. Remember that being the case?
Yeah, 3%.
So yeah,
3.6%, I want to say.
It's tricky for Image for sure. I'm sure if they could just generate a hit, they would do it. But since they're down to people who are successful bringing them successful ideas, that's a hard thing to replicate. And sometimes that's just not available to you.
Well, it's hard to differentiate an Image hit from all the other publishers you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And like just this week, Brian Azzarello announced a new series from, I want to say Aftershock.
Probably.
And his quote's like, it's unlike anything I've ever done before, kind of thing. But in my head, I'm like, oh, this is going to be way lower than Moonshine orders, kind of.
Remember American Monster?
Yeah, exactly.
How great did that do?
But there is a book coming out. We're currently ordering it now. That I just read the first issue of, and I loved it. And it felt like a classic Image #1, and it's not Image.
Is it coming out from Dark Horse?
It is coming out from Dark Horse.
Is it coming out from the Burger Books?
It is a
branch
burger
specifically?
book. Have you read it?
I didn't read it yet. Was the PDF legible, I guess?
Oh my gosh, the PDF is perfect.
Okay.
The only thing that makes it a PDF is in the lower left-hand corner.
Okay.
There's a tiny dark horse symbol on each page.
I will do that this weekend then, for sure.
It is real good.
Yeah, I was very excited about Invisible Kingdom by G. Willow Wilson and Christian Ward. I like Christian Ward okay, and I like Willow Wilson's stuff in general.
Did Christian Ward do some of the Black Bolt?
Yes,
Okay.
I want to say. I think he was the
and
main
also
artist.
filled in for Thor,
Yeah, he did
for Michael Mundo on Thor.
the future issues.
And Odyssey.
That was his book with Matt Fraction,
Yep.
yes.
I liked Invisible Kingdom a lot. There's a lot of world building. It's a little bit heavy in the, hey, you shouldn't own as much stuff as you do. You shouldn't get bogged down in material goods. I'd almost say, to be topical, it's a little bit Marie Kondo heavy.
Tidying Up meets Lord of the Rings meets
But
Alien.
it is a really good sci-fi story, and I'm not a sci-fi fan,
Uh-huh.
and I'm not going to say it's the next saga,
Uh-huh.
but I haven't been this excited for a sci-fi book in a long time.
All right, cool. I'm looking forward to reading it.
And I don't want to build it up too much, because I can imagine you going, it's all right.
Uh-huh. Is it as good as Saga and East of West and Akira? Because that's all I will read in issue 1.
Well, it's not as good as Little Bird.
If it's not at least that good, why am I wasting my time reading it?
I'm happy that it was as exciting as it was, because I had really high hopes for G. Willow Wilson's Wonder Woman,
Yeah.
and it's just okay.
Yeah,
A lot of that, I think, is art related.
Oh, for me, it's 99% the art. Just really did not like Carrie Nord's stuff on that. And I know there's like different artists now, but they're the B artist. Carrie Nord is the A artist. Yeah, it's not to digress, but the G. Willow Wilson stuff on Wonder Woman struck me very much as kind of the way Bill Willingham would do like fantasy and real world stuff.
Yeah.
Like it reminded me a lot of Fables, but that's not what I want out of Wonder Woman.
Okay.
Is to remind me of Fables.
Sure.
That's a different thing.
But yeah, given because aside from that, I think her last really creator-owned project was Air. Am I
Maybe,
missing
yeah.
anything in between? Egypt?
Egypt was, I want to say, before Air, or at
Okay.
least at the same time.
Time period. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really think of another creator-owned project, but maybe they just didn't
think
make an impact.
I think we'll revisit Invisible Kingdom next week when you've had a chance to read it.
Okay.
And then you could do one
Now
of
I
your...
have homework.
You're right. And we're going to put more pressure on you because you're so good at saying, at distilling essences and this meets this kind
It's
of
going to
things.
be really hard for it to not be something meets tidying up. It's going to be really, really hard. I just don't know if that's going to be as much in the Zeitgeist in a month and a half.
Oh, I think it's going to be...
Because you know how this Netflix stuff goes. Everyone binges it, and then
Right.
2 months later, they're like, oh, I was binging this 8 other series between now and then.
I think it's going to be Handmaid's Tale meets tidying up.
Jesus. It better be that, because if it's not that, then I'm going to feel so burned.
Speaking of Netflix, did you see that they released information about Bandersnatch?
I didn't, no.
Specifically, and I have not watched it, nor do I
neither.
intend to.
I will someday. It's on my list.
Well, there's a point where you get to pick the cereal the character eats.
Mm-hmm.
So they give the percentages of which cereal had the much higher percentage of being chosen.
Telltale Games would always do that, or at least on the Telltale Games I would play, where at the end of the game it would say, okay, the choices you made, here's globally
Okay.
what choices people
Sure.
made. So you could see, like, the thing you did, 80% of people did that. Or, like, the thing you did, only 20% of people chose what you chose. The David Cage, who did Detroit and Beyond Two Souls and Heavy Rain, those
Heavy
games.
Rain. I knew it. I knew that was... yes, I knew it. I was going to say that Quiet Detective one.
Yeah, Detroit and Beyond Two Souls definitely had portions where they would, at the end of a chapter, at the end of the game, they would show you again the same thing, where it's like, here's the like, not only Beyond Two Souls would do like the percentage thing, but Detroit would do this interesting thing where when you finished a chapter, they would show you basically a flow chart, and unlocked were the things that you did. So all the things that were not unlocked, you're like, wait, what choices did I not make? And you could kind of dial back and go, oh, that was something else I could have done differently, and it would have given me all these other things, so you could replay it later.
Neat. No, with that in mind.
And go, okay, these things I want to do differently and see what opens up. But anyway, sorry, Bandersnatch.
Well, just the other interesting tidbit was there's a point where you have to decide whether your character throws tea or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the hot beverage.
Sure.
Considerably less in Britain.
Huh. Tea's more precious.
That's right. Anyway,
in
the
Boston,
only reason...
they always throw the tea.
Always.
It's the thing they do.
The only reason I clicked on it, because it was, all the headline said was, Netflix releases figures for lowest. I'm like, oh, they never release ratings, let's do that. And I clicked it as chosen Bandersnatch.
Oh, they got you.
Things.
With their clickbait headline.
Yeah, it's like they told me that the Spider-Man trailer was only everybody being sad Spider-Man's dead and not in it.
To be clear, that was not a trick. That was a joke that was thought to be incredibly obvious. That they would... That anyone would think that they would release a teaser trailer for a multi-million-dollar movie. A movie that costs probably well over $100 million and is a tentpole for its studio for the summer. And that trailer would just be people being sad that Spider-Man is dead. And then you would watch it.
Well, in the context of Avengers Endgame, which I have not seen the trailer for, but I asked you if any of the dead Avengers were in it, and you said no. So using that same logic, I assumed Spider-Man was not in the Far From Home teaser, because it was called a teaser, even though it's a full trailer.
Yeah, it's like 2 minutes long.
And I thought it was just showing you things, like, you know, leading up to him being back or whatever.
Just Ned being really sad, sitting in a chair.
It's not out of the realm of possibility based off of the thing they had just done. Because it's not as if you see all the Avengers back in the trailer for Endgame.
I will try, next time I make a joke about the contents of a trailer, I will try and make it so absurd and ludicrous that you can't possibly believe it's true.
I told Gina today about that, and she's like, I can't believe he tricked you. And I'm like, well, he wasn't trying to.
It wasn't a trick.
But yes, it did make me...
It's like if I said Batman was in it, and then you watched it and Batman wasn't in it, I'd be like, no, of course Batman wasn't in it.
I just thought, like, okay, that one's safe. I can watch it.
Sorry.
It wasn't
well, don't
safe.
watch any more.
I'm not blaming you. I'm just telling you the outcome based off of a thing you had told me.
To be clear, my sorry was like a Canadian sorry. I'm not claiming responsibility. I'm just acknowledging that I feel bad for you.
But you mispronounced it.
Sorry. It's my American accent. I can't do it any better.
I think you need to give me some donuts to really hammer that home.
I don't understand.
Did you ever watch How I Met Your Mother?
I don't remember.
Canadians always give donuts.
I don't remember most of How I Met Your Mother.
They always give you donuts.
Okay. Well, I'm not Canadian, so there you go.
But you said it was a Canadian story. All right, fine. Since we're talking about Canada, we can talk about other international places. For example, Australia.
Okay, that's a place.
Melbourne, Australia.
Melbourne.
Because our good customer, club member, and patron, Artie White, was just at... Any guesses?
It could be literally anywhere on
All-Star
the planet. All-Star Comics
in Melbourne,
Australia.
Ironically, Artie texted me and said, hey, what was the name of that store? And do you need anything from it? I'm like, wow, my niece was just there. And because I hadn't seen my niece since she got back until this past weekend, we got an entire care package of Australian local comics from All-Star the way we gave them a batch of stuff.
Thanks, guys.
And I filmed an unboxing video, I guess. Like, it was an unbagging video of all the books. And they're all out on one of our tables for people to browse through.
Awesome.
And take a look at. And it's so fun how comics are universal. You know, it's not like they look or feel different. They look like they could have come off of our local shelves.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. And I haven't read all of them, but I've read a bunch so far. And like I said, it's great how comics is a universal language. Mm-hmm. Real fun. But sometimes people don't think comics are fun, and most of the time those people are...
Retailers.
We've talked the last couple of weeks... We talked the last couple of weeks about how at the start of the year it's always a sky is falling mentality. Mm-hmm. And this year is definitely no different with more and more people chiming in.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, I thought that your very ambitious plan for the future of single-issue comic publishing would have gotten more traction. We had
no.
a few people comment.
No.
But anyway,
Only laughter.
this is another reading portion, and most of this is available online. Actually, all of this is available online. And I did not ask for permission, but because this was on Twitter, I felt that it was in a public format, and it was okay. And I don't think it'll be as long as it does seem, although it does seem fairly long.
Oof.
This is a thread off of Twitter from Big Bang Comics in
Dublin, Ireland.
Dublin, Ireland.
I believe one of their number one... I think it was their number one comic for the year. Transformers, Rec Room of the Wreckers by Nick Roach.
And where does Nick Roach live?
Dublin, Ireland, I think.
Just asking. Just asking.
Could be wrong, but I think he's in Ireland.
This thread is by Bruno Batista, whom I do not know. And I know... I've never met, but I've conversed and talked with John Hendrick, who owns the store. And Bruno is his number one guy, and very active on the Twitters and social medias as well. But I thought this was interesting enough that I'm gonna read it for us now, without an accent, because that would be rude.
Yeah, definitely don't do the accent.
Now, where were we? Ah, yes, the old let's wait for the big corporations to change their model of business out of the kindness of their own hearts recurring discussion. Real talk, for all their speeches of supporting the direct market, DC and Marvel's number one priority is themselves. And you can't blame them for it. They're businesses. Look at DC. It went from a company that was super communicative with retailers and incredibly supporting to one that decided to give a Tom King and Andy Kubert story to Walmart. I feel like the structure of that sentence, I got lost. That's why I paused. It went from a company that was super communicative to one that decided to give Tom King and Andy Kubert a story to Walmart. I don't know, maybe they got big money for that. Maybe Mr. Walmart really loves comics and wanted some exclusives, but they literally cut out their number one partner, retailers in the direct market, out of something we could sell since our customers actually know those creators. It was puzzling, but just another show of how the comic book stores are seen by the corporations. But hey, we'll still be here to welcome them back with open arms if this thing fails, because retailers are suckers for punishment. You know when everyone talks about how comics are doomed and the publishers are the devil, blah, blah, blah? You know who the retailers online aren't blaming? Retailers. You know whose fault it is that we have 750 million variants per month? Retailers, because they're the ones that buy them in the first place. Marvel isn't to blame that there are 1 in 500 variants. Retailers are, because years of their practices and speculation led to this. Retailers that spent their lives only selling DC and Marvel and not building a diverse customer base are in danger now, because this is a different market, and some are having a really hard time with it. The entire situation the industry is living now, there isn't one single culprit. It's all of us. The direct market, remember, we're talking single issues here, is a delicate ecosystem, and we've been in the middle of our very own climate change for a good while. So what can we do to improve things? The direct market needs returnability. We won't be able to raise our orders and try to get more customers and stores in the current climate when we are being asked to take on all the responsibility. Retailers are expected to buy these comics from publishers, buy them outright, you don't get to return what you don't sell, and then do the marketing ourselves and sell them to customers. And hopefully, we'll turn a profit. This is unsustainable. You're not even marketing your own books, comic companies. An ad for Nightwing on Batman isn't marketing. You're talking to the same audience. How is it that these massive mega companies can't market anything to save their lives? Retailers have to shoulder all of these different expenses of the business so the publishers can make as much money as possible, and we don't even get treated as real business partners. We are constantly asked to buy, not order, buy, books without knowing what happens in them or sometimes who the creative team even is. That doesn't work like that anywhere else. I mean, I love Chip Zdarsky and totally get why he wants to keep people in suspense, read Daredevil number 1, but I'm not people, I'm a business partner. And Marvel should have not kept me in the dark. It's business. Creators should be free to make and not have to worry about marketing when they're working for a corporation. Corporations have people to do just that, marketing. Put them to use. I'm going to stop for a second and say, what were you talking about with Kelly Thompson this week?
So the new issue of the Jessica Jones digital comic released this week. They did a batch of issues, released the trade, now they were doing another batch of issues. And I guess Marvel didn't do anything to tell people that a new season of the Jessica Jones comic book had started, so it was down to Kelly Thompson to go, hey, here's some preview pages, the new book is out, please go to Comixology and buy it. And that's literally the last thing you should have to do when you're a work-for-hire creator, is promote your own book. But that's not even a new thing. The reason why Captain Marvel comic books found a large vocal audience that raised the profile of the character enough to be considered possible as a movie lead is because Kelly Sue DeConnick, out of her own pocket, did things like commission work from Jamie McKelvey for the costume design, to like print up things to send to stores, to print up things to send to the Carol Corps, to engage the audience, because Marvel didn't care. Marvel, the publisher who owns the character, didn't think it was valuable to do any of those things. And that's insane. But also, again, that was like 10 years ago. So nothing's changed since then.
No.
This is not like a new problem. This is what Marvel and DC have been like for over a decade. And the Kelly Thompson thing that was most insane to me was that the thing we were told for the longest time from companies like Marvel and DC that have, compared to other publishers, very large marketing budgets, in that they have any marketing budget, was that retailers would say things like, hey, do like a billboard for Superman comics, you know? Let people know that this big storyline with like Batman and Catwoman getting married, like advertise for that. And companies like Marvel and DC would say things like, well, you know, the penetration of comic shops in the US isn't sufficient to be able to do advertising like that, because, you know, if we did it in one city that maybe there's 5 or 10 stores, if we did in another city there might not be a store for 50 miles. So we can't really do nationwide advertising like that, either, you know, on billboards and stuff or in magazines, because we can't direct people to a store if there's no store by them, or if they can't find it. So even the comic shop locator service isn't necessarily going to solve that problem. That makes no sense to me when the comic in question is a digital comic that is available on your computer, on your phone, on your iPad. Everybody has one of these devices. Everyone could conceivably be the audience for this Jessica Jones comic, featuring a character that's been in 2 seasons of a Netflix show that's pretty popular, and yet Marvel, again, did no promotion for it. So the excuse of like, well, where would people buy it? On the phone.
Everywhere.
That everybody has in their pocket.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere they could see the ad, they can buy it.
Insane. Comixology, which is owned by Amazon. I think they'll find a way to get comics off of it. Anyway, sorry. So yeah, the advertising thing, the marketing thing, is still baffling that these companies, the 2 biggest companies in the industry, the ones that essentially control like more than 75% of the market, are so bad at this.
No apology needed. It was an exact,
Are so helpless.
pinpointed example of what he was saying.
Like, we saw it with like Runaways, where it's down to Rainbow Rowell trying to tell her fans, like, please go to comic shops and buy this because it's a good book and I want you to read it. That shouldn't be her job.
I mean, we always trot out this story, but Young Animal.
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry.
Yeah.
Gerard Way's going to promote it for us.
Yeah, he's got a million Instagram followers. All right. Well, that's not translatable into in-store sales, and it certainly isn't Gerard Way's job to do that. But sure, okay, if that's your plan. That said, not to let comic companies off the hook, but we've heard basically similar stories from people who exist in the larger book trade, that if you don't, like, the thing that if you have a book that you need to promote, and if you're an author that wants a good deal, the thing that you're more or less asked is, well, how can you promote this on social media? How are you going to drive people to stores? So, I mean, this is clearly a problem that every print publisher seems to have, but it's so weird how little Marvel and DC do to solve this problem in a way that we can point at and go, oh, that's helpful, do more of that. Like, there's almost nothing. Anyway, sorry. Go on.
Back into it.
A lot more from before that I want to talk about. I'll let you finish though.
Sure. To reiterate, corporations have people do just that. Marketing, put them to use. Example. I love the creators in the upcoming Age of X-Man stuff. All brilliant and talented people. Pre-orders on that are nearly 0 because no one knows really what it is. Because marketing for this is just, let's put something on Newsarama and call it a day.
So I'm going to jump in real quick on this because it is a legit problem. But here's the thing. Marvel, Age of X continues on directly from issue 10 of Uncanny X-Men. They can't promote Age of X without telling you what happens in Uncanny X-Men number 10. That's good for fans because they'll hopefully read Uncanny 10 and then in a couple weeks come by the Age of X-Men Alpha special because it's fresh in their minds and they want to see how the story concludes. It's bad for stores because we're not going to order a bunch because no one asked about it.
Right.
No one expressed an interest in it. So it's a problem. I see why they promoted it the way they did, but it's Marvel's fault for not giving this thing any breathing room. For instead of doing the solicitations after Age of X-Men or X-Men Disassembled concludes, and then saying, here's a bunch of books we got coming out in 2 months. They did that 2 months ago when no one knew what the hell was going on because we were 2 issues into Uncanny X-Men.
Did we talk about this? We got an email from the creators.
Yeah, which once again, it shouldn't be down to Zach Thompson and Lonnie Nadler to send out an email saying, hey, here's what the books are about.
Yeah,
Here's
I
why
know,
people
I know
might be
you have
interested.
questions. Let us try to help you with this.
That absolutely should not be their job as creators. That is Marvel's job. Marvel should be doing that email instead of sending us an email that's just a variant cover for another book that's coming out.
Yep.
Like, if you're sending out an email to retailers, don't have it be 7 different variant covers with no text in there besides all of the various legal obligations you as a retailer have not to talk about this email. That shouldn't be the bulk of the text. The bulk of the text should be, here are sales tools to help you better order and sell these comic books. Again, shouldn't be down to the creators to do this. Not if you're working for Marvel and DC. Anyway, sorry.
Hey, do you remember when Valiant did those cat
Jesus
covers?
Christ. Yes. Did you know that there's a cat poster for the new Captain Marvel movie, and now there's going to be a bunch of cat covers to Marvel Comics?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to get at. There's going to be a bunch of cat covers in Marvel Comics.
Okay.
Which I think people will love, but I guarantee you they're all going to be...
Yeah, the sales goals for that, or like the thresholds that we're going to have to clear are going to be for the level of... No thanks.
If they were open order, it'd be a whole different ballgame.
Well, maybe they will be, but I'd be shocked if they were.
Anyway. Those creators are fighting an uphill battle, and they seem to have almost no support from the publisher.
That's true.
What's the point of releasing a book you don't believe in 100%? Do you want to sell it or not? The companies don't care, because they know they'll sell enough copies to make it, or at least not lose money, and that's enough. Why spend money on marketing and potentially get new customers if you're happy with milking the usual people for more? You know why you are seeing all these announcements of new series selling out in the first 5 minutes? Of number 2 selling out even before coming out? Because publishers aren't overprinting. They'd rather not take that risk. They'd rather you, the customer, wait weeks for a second printing, potentially never coming back for it. Sorry, I have to turn the page.
2 pages of this.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Retailers aren't ordering as many comics as before, so publishers print these things as close to the bone. Then they can joyfully announce that they sold out in record time. Gee whiz. If you have orders of 10 for a number 1 and you print 10.5 because you'd rather get the sigh marketing bump of, this was so hot it's already going into second printing before coming out, you're not helping retailers, or more important, the customers. If you're putting out weekly series with no returnability and where retailers are buying 5 to 10 issues sight unseen, you're not helping. Retailers are here to sell as many comics as possible, but it's incredible how our business partners make it so hard. It really shouldn't be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. Retailers, join Comics Pro. We have a louder voice and we all talk as one. No one is going to help us. We have to help ourselves. Customers, keep being wonderful and spending money in your favorite comic book stores. Word of warning, though, more and more stores are cutting orders as much as possible, and if you're not there on Wednesday or have a pull list, you might miss out. We've seen a big increase in orders since we started using Comic Hub. Customers are definitely getting savvier about ordering comics, and now we have even less stuff going on the shelves. If your local shop has it, open an account on Comic Hub to manage your orders. If they don't, it's grand. Start a pull list. Tell the folks at the counter what stuff you're into and what you want to buy. All that helps. Again, almost all the stores we know are trimming orders as much as possible. Don't miss out. I mean, yeah, that's totally us. Publishers, some of you are already amazing and we love you so much. Other ones, let's see how we can work together more. We can sell more comics together. Let's get into 2019 and work it out, okay? This has been a very long rant, and I'm pretty sure you're tired of listening to me going on. Thanks for joining me tonight. My name is Bruno, and if I rant, it's because I love this stupid medium so much.
And keep reading... Oh, sorry. Wait. Sorry. That's off the end. Okay, so I be honest, I barely remember the entire thing, so I'm not sure if I'm going to have things to say about all of it. But one of the things I wanted to jump into was there's a thing in the beginning where he mentions that... let me see if I can get the quote here. For all their speeches of supporting the direct market, DC and Marvel's number one priority is themselves, and you can't blame them for it. They are businesses. So I hear that happen occasionally where a business does something destructive to the industry or short-sighted, and the answer is, well, they have to make a profit. And it's like, well, they can make a profit now where they can keep making a different profit long-term. So it is fair to ask a business to think long-term. We have to do it.
Right.
Our goal isn't
we
just
always do.
to make as much money as we can in January. It's to be able to hopefully keep making money in February and March and April. I know what you're going to say.
Okay.
Sorry. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say that the perfect illustration to this would be a phone call you received on Wednesday.
Oh, yes.
So you didn't know.
I didn't. I thought you were going to make a joke about when do we make money?
No.
That was going to be the joke.
We got a phone call that Dal took, and it was somebody who wanted 15 copies of Ironheart number 2.
Yes.
Our rule is you get 2.
Yeah. As stated at our register, to better provide for all of our customers, we request that you limit your purchases of New This Week items to 2 copies per person per day. And so basically someone calling up on the Wednesday of release and saying I need 15 copies, there's always a reason why. There's always a story of why that even though we have a rule, we should bend it for them. The end result, though, means that 13 other people have to go without. And it's an issue, too, that came out that day. Marvel's probably already sold out of it. The ability for us to get 13 more, even if we could get them the next week, it wouldn't do us any good. We'd have a week of telling people we don't have the new comic out. So to provide that for somebody who is not even a regular customer, this is just someone in off the street, more or less, who didn't buy 15 copies of issue 1 and isn't going to buy 15 copies of issue 3 from us.
And the potential of those 13 people going elsewhere to find it and then maybe saying, oh, well, I like this store. They had what I wanted.
Yeah, or if I have to go someplace else for Ironheart, maybe I'll just get everything this week there.
Yeah.
Because I have to make this other trip anyway.
Yeah, it would be short-sighted of us to just make the money off of that book that day when it doesn't help our numbers. It doesn't help our sales numbers. We can't assume that you just said that they'll come back and buy 15 copies of number 3.
Yeah, I would rather sell 13 copies of Ironheart number 2 to 13 different people than 15 copies to one person. That's easy math for me to do. Absolutely.
I mean, if the one person had said, oh, when this comes out...
Yeah, a month ago, sure.
We had a decent number of people pre-order Ironheart number 1.
Sure. We had people order 3 copies or more. And it's like, since they did it before the final order cutoff, I'll order you whatever you want.
Yeah, you want 100 copies of a book and we haven't placed orders yet? You get 100 copies.
Day of release, week of release, when that thing is marked New This Week? No,
nope.
2 copies.
Nope.
2 copies.
I did have to point that rule out to an employee today.
Oh, yeah?
And they thought it was a new rule.
Nope.
And I had to say, no. It's a regular rule. But the important thing is, they know it now.
Yeah. I can't really think of much else in this that I hugely have an issue with. The marketing is a huge problem. The thing that I'm curious about, when they mention returnability, if you mean it for issue 1, yeah, that's easy to say yes. If you're saying for everything comic-wise, for single issues, yes, if you only want a 25% discount.
Yeah, there's not a lot of incentive for publishers to do that all the way through because...
If you want them to take returns and give you your standard discount, not going to happen. And if you want to make do with 25% of cover as your profit, I mean, they might do returnability then, sure, yeah. That's a conversation if you want to have that. One of the things that I thought of in this one, when they specifically call out weekly books that we're ordering with no data, I can't remember if it was at Comics Pro, if it was at a Diamond Summit, but it was a David Gabriel thing, and during a Marvel Q&A, somebody had brought up the idea of, hey, Marvel, when you guys do weekly series, and I have to order, 3 or 4 of the issues of the series with no sales data, I'm going to order really low. If you don't make it returnable or increase the release of these outside of the final order cutoff window, there's no incentive for me to order high on this, to take a chance. I'm going to order, sub numbers and virtually nothing else. And they did the person asking us was like, raise your hands. Who in here would order more if it wasn't weekly? And everyone's hand goes up. And the David Gabriel response is basically internally we know what those numbers are going to be. We're okay with that.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so a retailer is telling you, and retailers as a class are telling you, when you do weekly series, we don't order them. And as a publisher, you're like, we're okay with you not ordering it. Why? Why would you be okay with that? Like, that was the most eye-opening thing of, like, even if you come to them as a group and go, you're killing your sales on these concepts, as a company, they're like, that's fine. How do you argue with that as a retailer? If they don't want to raise sales on some of these books, if they're okay with some of these books not selling, there's no discussion to be had after that point. That's it. That's them saying, we know what the numbers are and we're okay with that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a lot. So I feel like I'll be saying this a lot in 2019. Absolutely, if you feel strongly about this and you're a retailer, join an organization like Comics Pro. Go to the Comics Pro annual meeting. Participate in the discussion. Make your voice heard to the various publisher representatives that will be there. For me, a lot of these are just standard industry headwinds. And it's how you deal with those that determines kind of the health of your business and what you're able to do in the industry. Again, like when you're pointing out things like poor marketing, that's not new. That didn't just happen in 2018 for us to have to deal with it in 2019. It was happening in 2008, 2009, 2001.
I mean,
1998. I mean, just you can keep going back. It was all there.
I've harped on for as long as Challengers has been around, and it's an easy talking point because it has never changed.
Yeah, and I mean, when I'm at my most pessimistic about the medium as a whole, some of the stuff you look at and you're like, well, how many more people? And I think we talked about this when we were talking about my ridiculous notion of changing the way that superhero comics are released. How many more people are conceivably going to buy Avengers comics? Like, what is the upper threshold for that on a regular basis? How many regular monthly readers could you possibly add in 2019 to Avengers? And I don't want to hear about these things used to sell X amount of copies. Well, things used to be different in the past, yes. But in 2019, looking at the world as it is now, Netflix, which is raising its pricing for all of its tiers at I think a higher level or a higher percentage than they've ever raised them before. When they were talking about why they were doing it, they specifically said it's not Hulu and HBO Go, it's Fortnite.
Yeah. That's
the competition. So the world is so oversaturated with content that if you're, I don't know that the best written and best drawn and best marketed Avengers comic is going to sell 300,000 copies every single month. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think the audience exists. And we all have spent, as retailers, 10 years now. 10 years, man!
10 years, man! 10 years! 10 years! 10 years! 10 years!
Wondering why, Iron Man movies do great and Iron Man comics don't do great. No one's had an answer for that. Marvel hasn't had an answer for that. Marvel's released how many AAA Iron Man titles that then no one reads? And Iron Man graphic novels that no one buys.
And the current Iron Man series, which is really good, sells very low.
Robert Downey Jr. is going to make like $1 billion having done Marvel movies. And yet Marvel Comics can't get people to read an Iron Man comic book. Over 10 years. And multiple attempts. So I hope someone somewhere that clearly is not me has a magic bullet solution for how these things can happen. Other than noting that they are problems, I don't know if they're problems that have solutions. Again, not to just rehash last week, this might just be the evolution of the comics industry. This is just what it looks like in 2019. Some of these problems are correctable. If you're a store that bet heavy on variants, that's a bubble and eventually it's going to burst. Might not burst all at once, but it's going to burst. But if you're talking about like how companies like Marvel operate and the way that they, view their quarters and how they promote their books and where talent is and blah, 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 this is just the industry.
Yeah, that's never going to change.
It's just the industry.
And if it does change, it'll change for the worse.
Yeah.
For retailers.
And people keep pointing out that there's 1 billion variants. As a store, you don't have to order them all. If you have people asking for them, maybe you order them. If you can reasonably do so. We carry some variants, and we didn't used to. We used to carry no variants. Now we carry some. We don't bet on them. We carry them as like a supplement to what we're selling in the same way that we also carry posters and, action figures and comic supplies and dice, you know?
We had 3 times as many people ask for last week's Harley Quinn variant than we sell of the book, period, per month.
And that's just speculators. That's just people who are trying to, you know, game the system or turn a quick buck. I'm okay saying no to those people.
Right.
I'm okay as a retailer saying, I don't feel bad not having ordered that one comic that I couldn't have predicted people would want.
Well, and that's why we don't try.
And we're not going to, for subsequent issues, we're not going to bet on those, because it's a bad bet.
The number of times, let's say, the Flash variant has sold out immediately versus the number of times it's never sold out.
Sure. This past week's issue the most recent issue of Deathstroke, we sold 0 copies of the variant for the first time. Previously, like, almost every variant had sold out, like, within 2 or 3 days of release. It just, the wheel turned and people went, I don't want Deathstroke variants anymore. You know? If you're doing that, if you're a variant business, it's a gamble, and recognize that. You could win big. You could also lose big. That's not a sustainable business model. But if you want to do that as a store, go ahead.
Yeah, it's your store. It's your right.
I guarantee you there's people who made way more than us in 2018 playing that system. I don't think it's sustainable, and I don't want to bet the continued health of our company on that. Because eventually you're going to guess wrong, and I've worked in the industry long enough to see bubbles burst and see what happens when that does. But the rest of it, this is what Marvel's like. This is what Marvel's been like for, I mean, at least 10 years, but realistically, like 30.
Yeah.
Carol Kalish has not been around for a long, long time. This is what the industry's like. I'm sorry. You can absolutely complain to Marvel about it. You can go to Comics Pro and as a group, try and present your case and find a way to, you know, speak passionately and articulately and offer viable solutions. There's no guarantee Marvel's going to take them, and there's no guarantee that Marvel's going to agree with you what the problems are and what the solutions to those problems should be. If they say no, you have to have a plan B. And that plan B is, you know, to borrow a Nick Fury thing, taking the world as it is, not as you'd like it to be.
And that's comics retail. Perfect point to stop. But I do want to mention that we have, not only have we restocked Marty and Sarah Love Wrestling enamel pins.
Hey, Contest of Challengers listeners.
This is Marty and Sarah.
And we love wrestling.
We love wrestling so much that we should have a podcast called Marty and Sarah Love Wrestling.
Oh, we should.
We should. Oh, guess what? We do.
We do.
And you guys should check it out.
Yeah, it's on MLW Radio. New episodes drop on Thursdays. It's on iTunes or anywhere else you can find podcasts. So check it out and keep being Challengers cool.
And you could buy our pins at Challengers. What a world.
We have a brand new, what I was calling a zine, but in fact it is a mini comic called What's in a Name, and it is the future of the Lil Enzo character.
Uh-oh.
Right. Well, I mean, Lil Enzo was a big part of their podcast for a long time, and then Big Enzo wound up being a giant piece of garbage.
Yes.
So they had to stop using Lil Enzo. The character Lil Enzo has to come to some harsh realizations.
Huh.
Guest starring Brad the Alien, who was recently at the store.
Is that right?
And we have, not only did he draw himself on the wall, we have pictures of him being there.
Cool.
And, while we won't talk about it now, we are doing a big Marty and Sarah and Challengers and Wrestling Dreams and the Young Bucks Stand Tall event on Easter Sunday.
Easter Sunday.
I mean, that's why Jesus rose, right? Was to watch some good wrestling.
I have not read the Bible ever.
Well, in fact,
but I think you're right. That's what I heard.
There will not be any wrestling at the store, but there will be wrestling dreams.
I can guarantee that.
True. More details on that as they unfold. And don't forget, we have our I Love You, But I've Chosen Comics 25% off everything in the store except held items, discounted items, consignment items. And if you spend over $100 before tax, you get a free, made just for the sale t-shirt designed by Melissa Sue Stanley. And it's fun, and that is coming up February 7th through February 13th. One solid week, which is, you know, one of the best years, or one of the best weeks of the year. Also one of the best years of the year.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
For everyone.
Yeah.
And then Women's Comics Month is a go, and during Women's Comics Month, we will have a special Friday night event with Lucy Knisley on Friday, March 8th. And we are down to only 4 unfilled days for Women's Comics Month. So lots of things happening in the store, in your ears. Thanks for listening.
Keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.